Welcome, Legionnaires, to the Long Live the Legion podcast, where we talk about the Legion of Superheroes comic book team and break subjects down so that whether you're just out of the Legion Academy or you're a longtime veteran, you get to know the team a little bit better. I'm your co-host, Jay.
And I'm your co-host, Jim.
And welcome to episode number 37. What's on our mission monitor board today, Jim?
Well, Jay, we have a very special episode today. One of the things that we always like to talk about as part of the Legion is that it's very sci-fi. There's a lot of cool tech. So what we wanted to do was have an episode that's really dedicated to talking about all the different technology that the Legion uses. And to help us with that discussion, we have a very, very special guest with us today. Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, folks. I am Paul French. You may know me from Legion of Substitute Podcasters. We are arguably one of the longest running Legion podcasts. We started way back in October of 2008. And so we've been talking about this stuff for a very long time, every Sunday. And yeah, that's really the main thing about that. But when Jim, when you presented me with a list of topics, the tech one was immediately like, yes, there it is.
Awesome.
There it is. Because it is something that, like you say, the team is so known in that science fiction area, but it is amazing how the technology has changed with the era in which it's being written, but also, and I mean, we see the same thing with Star Trek. It is where eventually that thing's going to exist in some way, shape, or form.
Exactly. One of the things that I was looking through and found when I was researching was the old Omnicoms, right? And the Omnicoms, I would say, arguably are a reference to the pad devices that were from Star Trek, right? And which those inspired the iPad.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
it's wonderful.
I'm always referring to my Omnicom. So I have it right here.
Somebody should make a skin for the iPad that makes it look like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately, you just wish the Legion was popular enough that Apple could justify just saying, here's our version of the iPad, but it's going to look like an Omnicom.
Yes, exactly.
It's going to, it'll cost you an extra $50, but you get to walk around and you get little messages from Macaulay, like telling you to do bad stuff. And then you could have a lot of fun with it.
Absolutely.
All right. For the listeners, there's so much tech to talk about here. So we're going to try to get through, I think, the big items and the big thoughts. But as you know, if you listen to this podcast all the time, we'll probably get into something incredibly obscure, and we're not going to apologize for that. I was going to say, I think we got to start with arguably the most recognizable bit of Legion tech, which has got to be the flight ring.
Absolutely.
Because it's also the thing that's been throughout almost the entire run of the Legion.
Yes.
We think about it. It was introduced back in 1965. And it replaced the flight. They had the jetpacks in the beginning.
Yep. And the flight belts.
Yep.
And they had the flight belts. And
they were going in the right direction. They're making everything smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. Like, if you read those old ones, they always forget to draw the flight belts. And so you kind of have to wonder, like, how are they flying? And maybe that's why they did the flight ring, because it was easier to draw, or if they forgot, nobody noticed.
I mean, yes, you're right. The only time we ever saw them was when they gave them to rejected applicants. Because, hey, you're not good enough to join our team, but here's one of our great technology pieces. So it's like flunking an interview with Apple and getting an iPad as a parting gift. But yeah, the flight belts, I think that's a key reason right there, is out of necessity. We keep forgetting to draw them. Make it something small, no one will notice.
Yeah, exactly. But I love the call out of the subs getting like the hand-me-downs of the Legion.
We got flight rings now. What do we get? We ordered a whole case.
Your cousin your old underwear or something.
Yeah,
like that.
we got a whole case of these things. We got to get rid of them.
That's right.
Yeah, and when you think about it, here's this insanely complicated piece of technology. When you really think about it, it's this anti-gravity element that they can use that's controlled by willpower. And no, we're just going to hand these out to everybody who's not good enough to be on our team and have fun. And then when you stop and think, well, what if they want to do something bad? Like, you've just given them this great opportunity to really, really get in trouble. So yeah, when we think about the beginning, like, there was no L on the ring in the very beginning. It just kind of looked like a regular ring.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't even go that far. And it wasn't, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't think it was until like end of Silver Age that they actually made the rings look like how we imagine them today. So it was just a silver so we're banned. And it's like, hey, we can fly.
I feel like, and it probably was shown this way long before it, but the one I always remember is when Chuck is in the statue room and he's flipping the ring up and down, trying to decide, like, what are we doing? And that to me was like, wow, that's incredibly detailed. It seems more so than I remembered it being before. Now, there probably are examples from before, but that seemed to me to be where it was like, yeah, like now it's like a graduation ring. It's a big deal.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because I remember back when I think when all of us were probably in high school, right? Your class ring was a big deal,
Exactly.
right? And now I don't think it's as much of a big deal. At least for my kids, they didn't even care about even getting it.
Totally.
But back in our day, that was the thing. So I'm wondering if this was that idea of the flight ring with teenagers was kind of a similar tie-in there.
Yeah, because you can't say that it was a marketing tool, right? Like this is the 1960s. Nobody was even thinking that, which is kind of funny. Like I was mentioning this before we started recording. As far as I know, the first time DC decided to market the ring was in the 90s. Like it was after the reboot had started.
Yeah.
And that's when I got, so just full nerd disclosure here as a Legion fan.
Nice.
That's where I bought my Legion flight ring, or that's when I bought it. And it was I remember, when seeing that in the previews going, I can buy a flight ring? Like, yep, yes, sign me up. Don't care how much it costs.
I want to fly.
Get me this thing.
Yeah. Does it work?
Oh, wait. Yeah. Sadly, it does not. And I have the broken bones to prove.
Oh, no.
So
You're supposed to start from level ground, Jay.
I know. But it's like you tie the towel around your neck and you put the ring on and you just go crazy. So it's, and so, I think it's a really good call. Like the idea of the class ring, or the idea of this thing that would kind of connect all the team members. And then what's funny is, like, in the very beginning, it was just so very simple. It was like, here's a ring, doesn't really do anything else. It can fly anybody around until Block got introduced.
Right.
And then they said, nope, he's too dense for one. So they ended up with
he needed three. He needed three was what it was. Yeah.
3 flight rings. And then it wasn't until I think we started seeing it probably like Giffen Levitz, where they started adding like, okay, it's a communicator, or okay, it's
exactly.
Yeah.
The transuit, it's actually the transuit is in the ring. And we'll talk about transuits later as well.
Yeah. So,
right. And it kind of just stayed the same. Now, Reboot, they made some changes.
Yes. Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about from the Silver Age perspective. So, like you said, we see it in the 60s in Adventure 329. And so I put a note here that says it was element 152 that apparently Mon-El discovered.
Right.
And,
that's right.
Right. And then, but it's also called Valorium when I was doing my research. Was that a retcon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a post-Giffen thing where it's like, oh, we should call it that because he's the one who came up with it.
Yeah. Well, that was
that's what I thought. Okay.
Well, that was wasn't it a post reboot as well? Like, wasn't that 3-boot that introduced the Valorium?
No. That was
it was Reboot.
5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
5 years later.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. It's really tough because you do this research and you're like, okay, when did this get
right?
Like, for example, you were talking like it's this element. It was invented by Mon-El, and then eventually they retcon it to say no, it was invented by Invisible Kid, and so it's kind of tough because you read those early issues and you're like, oh, this is what happened, not and then nope, we're throwing all that out. So I kind of go with, I always think in terms of like when E. Nelson Bridwell and when Levitz is working for DC and you could tell the right, and I think even when Carrie Bates is on, they start trying to sort of establish the like, here are the rules of this, or here's what actually happened. And that's when it starts getting, I don't want to say set in stone because it's a comic book, nothing is ever set in stone, but they start kind of establishing the rules.
Yeah. And there is nothing that leads to a rule breaking quicker than establishing the rules.
That's right.
Because it just shines a light on how it's like, we have it do whatever we need it to do in that story.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. So is there anything else Silver Age or anything else Bronze Age that we've missed about this?
No, I think that's it, because once that flight ring gets established, it's pretty much there. And like we said before, once Levitz gets a hold of things and Giffen, they really start adding features to it.
Yeah, it's very 50s era sci-fi at the beginning, isn't it? Like, it's...
Oh, for sure.
They're talking to each other on screens at most, and we haven't yet got into the hologram era and all that. Like, it is very much what you would see in a 50s or 60s sci-fi movie.
Yes, very Buck Rogers,
Yes,
Flash Gordon.
yes, that's
kind of
it.
stuff.
That's
for sure, 100.
Yeah,
Especially when we get to the Legion cruisers, we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, you could almost make that statement about every bit of Legion tech, where it's always 10 years after what, I don't want to say pop culture did, but what sort of the sci-fi of the era had set. Like, Silver Age Legion feels like the 50s. The 70s Legion feels like Star Trek, right? The 80s Legion feels like, and I know Giffen has said this is an influence, like 70s manga, right? Or 70s anime. So it's like that Japanese influence of like, let's throw the tech. And then I think the only time that you kind of go backwards is when you get to Reboot Legion, it kind of goes back to feeling older, if that makes any sense.
More sort of that retro feel, but with an interesting sort of forward push. It's an important thing that you point out there, because it's like when they came out with the Karate Kid book, right? Levitt said, by the time we got around to jumping on a trend like Kung Fu movies in the 70s, it was over. And, these were fans of that era. So, a lot of this early stuff, it's like, it's Eddie Hamilton. It's as probably the major one early on. It's Siegel. It's guys who were like fans of Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, and
absolutely, absolutely, it's absolutely reflected in what we're seeing here on the page over all these issues. Now, when the 3-boot flight ring, they did a little bit of a twist from an origin perspective, because now I'm trying to remember it. Brainy actually created the element as a byproduct of something. And then, like we talked about in the episode where we had the spotlight on Lyle Norg, Lyle actually created the ring from that byproduct. We were talking in that episode about how Lyle is the more practical scientist between him and Brainy, because he actually can make something functional out of the tech, out of the material that actually does something. Not that Brainy doesn't, but it's more broadly useful.
But Lyle's inventions kill less people, so there's that.
Blow up less stuff.
At one point, was it not, and maybe I'm mixing it up with something else, but I thought at some point they kind of basically came up with an element that was essentially nth metal.
So when we get to 3-boot, I remember reading it when it came out, and they did a 3-page deep dive on flight rings. In 3-boot, it's issue 41, like Legion 41.
Yeah.
And it's basically like 3 pages of like, here's the history of the flight ring. Here's who's invented it. Here's like, so it's based on nth metal from Thanagar. And then Brainiac 5 was doing research on it. He ended up using an isotope. I'm just reading from the comic, actually. An isotopic alloy named Valorium. And then Invisible Kid created the ring from that.
Okay.
Now, where I get kind of stuck on that is they had flight rings before Invisible Kid joined the team, but it's 3-boot. And I mean, I know by issue 41, they didn't care, but if anything makes sense.
They certainly did not. But I think that it was heavily implied that Lyle was too young to join at the beginning or something like that. And he was doing stuff for them before he actually joined.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, it's been a hot minute since I haven't read that stuff since it came out, save for like the first 12 issues. And so it is something I hope to get back to at some point.
After rereading all of them, don't rush back. There's better Legion stuff out there. I'll just save you your time and energy there. Like when I did the reread on all of this,
those first dozen issues,
I can leave this alone for a bit.
Yeah,
so
fair enough. Fair enough.
It's you stare at the artwork and you go like, "Wow, Barry Kitson, this is stunning," and then you sit there and say like, "Wow, Mark Waid, like maybe you just shouldn't write the Legion." Like maybe that's your kryptonite.
Maybe you don't like it as much anymore. It's fair.
So, or it's just you're too much of a fan, right? And I think that happens sometimes when you love characters or a series too much. You can't handle them as well as characters that maybe you're a little bit more ambivalent to. Like, and maybe that's what it is. But yeah, so in this case, like, sorry, we'll get back to the 3-boot flight ring. That was our little aside on Mark Waid. And they actually go through.
Before you go on, Jay, just to let everybody know here, there is a 3-boot Omni coming out at the end of this year of 2026. So
not a surprise.
Yes.
Should folks want to actually go back and revisit all of this one.
Is it going to be the whole like Waid plus Shooter, or is it just
just the Waid?
They haven't. They're not getting that far yet, and that's it's a whole thing. But
because again, like the Shooter one, you'd think they'd re-release because you've got Francis Manipul on art, like just for that. And then since Jim Shooter passed away, it's like, hey, do you want to see his last crack at the Legion? Not that it's great, but you can see what he did.
I'm sure at some point it will happen. They've definitively named this omnibus The Legion of Superheroes by Mark Waid and Barry Kitson omnibus.
Okay.
So
there we go. That's all good. Okay. All right. Shall we get unless there's another aside on the omnibus that everybody should be looking for.
That's all I got.
So when we talk about the flight ring, in these 3 pages, they actually lay out like everything. What can the ring do? It actually controls acceleration and maneuverability so the user doesn't get hurt. There actually is kind of the transuit built into it where it protects, it gives you a breathable atmosphere. So it ties into the nth metal that way. It's got its own navigation system. It's got a homing device. You can locate the person. They really make it a little bit better. And then the one thing that was really interesting is they have like collision protection. So you can't fly into somebody or something else if you're wearing the ring, which then I wonder, like, so how can, like, say, Ultra Boy turn into invulnerable and crash into something if the ring's saying, like, no, you can't do that?
That sort of imparts some sort of almost, Green Lantern power ring personality to it, where, that was an add-on much later. Where it was like, so the ring will protect them from harm and that sort of thing. And so it certainly moves it beyond a simple anti-gravity device.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And they're just, I think it's one of those where I think in the 3 boot, they sat there and they said, how can we take sort of all of these basic things that you'd see people carry? So like a log system or a recording device or communications. And then how do we get this into this one ring so we don't have to have them with a belt of like 50 things, or we no longer have to draw them holding up a walkie-talkie and going, hey, da 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 da. It's just like,
and where did they put that after?
Yeah. We don't ask those things.
Hey, now.
They all go into what's it called? They all go into those cubes that are in like the quantum dimensions.
Oh, yes.
The tesseracts?
Yeah,
the tesseracts,
yeah.
right? They're all in the storage tesseracts, right?
Yeah, I always thought in the reboot that's what their action pouches were on their belts. Or just these
little tesseracts.
Portable tesseracts. That they
in other words, it's like I reached in and pulled out one, but there's like 1,000 in there.
Exactly. It's full of stuff. The other thing in the 3 boot, and I'm surprised that they didn't have this on those pages that you were talking about there. And this is introduced very early on, I think in that first dozen issue run that you were talking about there, Paul.
Yeah.
It's it also would, when the wearer had the ring on, it would actually have them be in their uniform, their Legion guys, and if they took it off, they'd be in civilian clothes.
See, so the Mayfair role-playing games would have described that as insta-change.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. But the funny thing is that was one of those plot items that just got mentioned, I think, for one issue, and then nobody really talked about it ever again.
That's fair. Like I say, the one way to make sure people ignore a rule is to declare it.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, weren't they never supposed to take off the ring? It's not like you'd see a Legionnaire say, I'm going to go out to the bar tonight, pull it off, and then just, like, I think they always had it on, right?
Because who doesn't want to always fly?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'd have it on 24/7. It's like a wedding ring. Keep it on. You're married to the Legion.
And then, the other funny part with the flight ring as well is there's always been the issues with everybody's individual powers, right? Like, what happens if Triplicate Girl splits into 3 and you only have one ring? And they actually touched on that in 3 boot.
Yeah.
And every other old version, they immediately were like, nope, Brainiac 5 figured it out. So it shrinks with Shrinking Violet.
Hand wave.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
He's a 12th level intellect. Yeah. Don't think about this too hard, right? Let's just get this going. It's the same. Like how does Chameleon Boy turn into anything if he's got a solid metal object on his
Where
hand?
does the ring go when he turns into an ant?
There's some questions we don't want to know the answer to.
Fair enough. But he turns into an ant. I mean, automatically, okay, we accept that Shrinking Violet's ring shrinks with her.
Yeah, well, because, you can make the argument if her clothes shrink with her.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just say, like, you could just write it off as, like, Imskian power it's almost like a field around them.
Yes,
the whole thing shrinks, right?
Yeah.
Right? And then you could, Colossal Boy, you could probably make the same argument as well. Although in 3 boot Colossal Boy, Microlad.
Yes.
Like you just build a gigantic ring and then it shrinks. So it's the same tech as, we'll go with Atom Girl because although I just hate that name.
Yeah.
In 3 boot. Look, we had this big discussion about Triplicate Girl and how her powers really don't make any sense if you think about even the slightest part of it. When we did that episode on her, as I was saying, like, there's the one scene in Reboot where she's a baby in the hospital and she goes to 3 and all the medical tubing triplicates as well. And you're like, how does that work?
And leave it.
It's like, oh, we need an extra cruiser. Hold on to this one and now triplicate.
Yeah.
3 cruisers.
Well, that was my comment. Hey, we need some money. Just
it's how you build a fleet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Before we move on to the other stuff from the flight ring, I did want to actually point this out because we kind of mentioned this when we were talking before we started recording. In the reboot, Sensor has her own special flight ring. It's basically her bodysuit that is kind of wrapping around her body that has a Waldo attached to it as well, because obviously she has no hands, so she needs her own special kind of contraption.
Yeah,
for
totally
using a flight ring.
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to point out before we move on to the next bit of tech, and for all the things that I say bad about the reboot, the one thing that I do kind of really give them props for is the respect for the past and the respect for the history. So one thing they actually added is like thought codes to the rings, where if you wanted to override the ring, you thought you had to mentally recite 1958, which of course is the year the Legion was invented or created. And then if you have an emergency and if you have a panic, you either rotate the face of the ring 180 degrees, or your thought code is OBAP. So like Autobinder Al Plastino.
That's great. I love that.
Right?
I didn't know that. Yes.
And it's just those little things where you're like, okay, I'm just enough of a geek to kind of get what all of these mean. And it's just this really cool touch where like, yeah, let's pay homage.
Yes.
In these little bits. So, great job. Unfortunately, the 3-page, and I hate to do this to the artist and I'm not going to name him, it's really badly drawn. Like it's just horrible artwork. So you kind of look at it, like there's a drawing of Brainiac 5 where I don't know, like he looks like a scroll.
I recognize him.
Like a scroll. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't remember this thing at all. So I'm going to look forward to taking a look at it afterward.
Yeah, if you find it, and I think I want to say this is the same issue, or it's around the same time, or it's in the same era. And then they pull like the Cockrum art and they're showing all this really horrible art. And it's like, wow, like you just see right there on the page how good Cockrum was compared to these guys who they're bringing in. So again, I'm not going to name the artist because I know he would go on to do better stuff. Like I think it was just early in his career and he's just learning.
That happens.
But like it's not good. Okay, moving past, what is the next piece of tech that we'd want to talk about? I'm going to say, Paul, I'm going to let you choose.
Well, I mean, and this is a shorter conversation, but the transsuit is one of those things where even into the early 80s, we still had Legionnaires putting spacesuits on and the helmet, or they wouldn't, or they would. It was again very inconsistent, and I feel like this was actually just before Levitz joined, because it were for the third time or the second time, because it was during the reserve due resonance for the great Reflecto saga.
Yeah.
Because in the saga, that's where we actually first saw the transsuits, and it was literally like a layer, like they could pinch it and hold it up, and it turned invisible against them, as opposed to just being sort of an aura, a field of protection. It was an actual thing, physically.
I did way too much research on this particular topic yesterday, so I found basically the same stuff, and I found a couple other things too. So, like you're saying, Paul, beginning in the Silver Age, everyone was in the spacesuits, right? It was pretty traditional scenarios where the Legionnaires would be dressed up in a some kind of a thin NASA kind of spacesuit with the fishbowl helmet. And then around Superboy and the Legion 225, they transitioned to more of the transsuit, but they still had a helmet. So you have the uniform.
The Cosmic Boy fishbowl. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, everybody would have some kind of a helmet if they were in space. And then, you're right. The first, I guess, in continuity appearance of them just being in space, just in a transsuit is, I think 278 was the issue that I put down here.
Saga.
But here's the weird thing. So 272 is a few issues before that. This is where Block kind of talks about the retcon.
Yes.
And that is actually the first issue that I could find that had them in transsuits, even though it's like a retcon. They're talking about something that happened in the past.
Yeah.
when they would nominally be using these helmets. So yeah, it's weird, but it's absolutely a transuit that without a helmet in 272. So
yeah,
that's the era we start getting them. Yeah,
right. And I just have this memory of at one point someone actually literally like pinching their arm and lifting up a piece of it, and I remember at the time thinking like, wow, that's kind of cool. And that way they can have them in space in costume, and it's.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, it goes back to like, the Green Lantern properties of things where it's like, it's just there when it needs to be. It's like, well, what if they want to eat a sandwich? And it's like, it's okay. It's okay.
Exactly.
It lets sandwiches through, just not invasive atmospheres.
You can have your sandwich when you get home. just wait.
Yeah. Well, the transuit was the first time, like, because you did the deep dive, I did a deep dive as well, of trying to figure out when it started, because I'm online and nobody could say, like, it's really funny, like flight rings, it's like it's this issue, and we introduced the flight ring, but with transuits it's more of like in the 70s, like nobody can give like an actual like here's when it actually starts, because you have moments where it literally is just who's the artist, right? So like Grell would sometimes draw spacesuits and sometimes was just like, I don't care, I just want to draw them the way I want to draw them, and that's Murray Boltinoff time where like they don't care. Like, we don't care if the continuity makes any sense. Let's just go. Then Jim Sherman is drawing with the bubbles, but clear suits. So it kind of is like a transuit.
Because you can see the costume then.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, how do they know who's talking?
Yeah.
Yep. Right?
And then like Joe Staton. Yeah. Staton, sorry. He's drawing like an actual suit. I think Mike Nasser was doing that as well. So like it almost depended, was Jerry Conway writing it? Was Paul Levitz writing it?
Yeah.
Who was telling them what to draw? And there was nobody to say, this is how we want them to look in space. Everybody was just, and it's the same, like all the tech changes from issue to issue to issue, because there's no one central person going, this is what you want to do. Like, it's funny how you mentioned like 272, where they do the flashback and they're in transuits. But like, I found an image of like, it looks like mid-70s Saturn girl putting on a transuit.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find the issue that was from, and I'm like, I can't find this. And it because they just stopped caring. And I think it's from the issue where they fight the what is it? The Composite Legionnaire.
Okay.
But I'm completely guessing on that one. And they just were like, we don't care. Like, we don't care if this makes sense. And yeah, so that's why, like, I think Levitz's second run, so much time is spent of, like I think when Conway's at the end of his run, he's like, okay, I want to start establishing what works and let's start making some rules. But it's not until Levitz comes on where he's like, no, they're doing this. This is how they look. We don't care about the sandwiches.
I think there was a difference in how invested each guy was in the property, right? And
totally.
And so, a lot of these earlier things, it's a convenience. And it reminds me of like, you watch the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, right? And you've got the battle with Green Goblin and Spider-Man. And it is completely opaque-faced Spider-Man says, I'm going to get you, Green Goblin. And then you've got completely opaque-faced Green Goblin saying, no, you won't. And it's like they're holding action figures up because you can't see their faces anyway. And I think, and you can see that for the second movie, the studio was already like, we are paying a lot of money for these people. We're going to see their face. And so as a result, Spider-Man has half the movie with his mask off in front of people, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And I think that you got a lot of this became what makes consistency easier. Flight belts to flight rings. It's like nobody's going to notice if it's not in the image, right? So we go with that. And trans suits, it's like, well, we want to see their costumes because we want to know who the hell is talking. And so a lot of it comes down to storytelling convenience, right? Or expediency.
Yeah, totally. And then not to go down too far of a rabbit hole or anything, but when you mentioned that, Paul, I'm thinking over to The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where that's like the complete opposite, because you hardly ever see Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
He's always in the mask. Like most
or
of the time,
is he?
Yeah, right. Exactly. After the last movie, I was kind of wondering. I think they had in the credits people who were like in the suit, and I don't think he was in the suit the whole time.
Yeah. Let my stand-in do that part. Oh,
Exactly.
this is the scene where the guy kicks the Mandalorian in the nuts. Yeah, let's have my stand-in do that one.
I mean, it's good work. You only show up like one day a week for the filming. It's great.
Well, I mean, as bad as that is, have you ever heard the stories of? I think Adventures of Pluto Nash is one of the worst. Like Eddie Murphy's got to stand in like 90% of the time. Like unless the camera is right on his face, like if it's behind him. So he's got an actor who just looks like him from every other angle except for straight on.
Yeah.
And and then you say like, why are we paying Eddie Murphy? But it's like, well, because
this is it.
This
is it. Like what? We got to pay 5 other guys to do bits where he's on screen. We're already paying a lot of money for this guy. No, exactly. It's so much of it comes down to like, how can we do this? And when they, in the cases where they do actually care about the continuity and having some, or again, this goes back to the Giffen thing of continuity versus consistency. If we want it to be consistent and that we can always see who they are. Yeah, give them the invisible spacesuit. Fantastic. Nobody has to change what they're doing, and we know who's talking.
I also think from a fan perspective, like I would rather see the costume than a bunch of characters just wearing white suits. Like it's just more. It's
why
more
they have costumes,
right?
Yeah.
For a super, right. This is a superhero comic. This is not hard sci-fi.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
So we just want to have fun and see our characters, look cool.
Yeah. And having said that as well, and we'll get into this more this episode, and this will be a drum that I bang on all the time, which is it's the 31st century. Like, just go crazy. Like, who's going to sell you? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to have a trans suit. Like, how can they breathe? It's the 31st century.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. They bring in the oxygen with a tesseract. The tesseract.
Exactly.
Tesseract solved everything.
And I like in the 3-boot that's how they they solved the problem where it's just on the ring, right? You have the ring on, you're good. You don't have to worry about it.
And that was an excellent extension of that idea.
Exactly, because there's some of these ideas that we see with the trans suit. I know, like in the reboot, there's this one issue where I think Violet gets caught in space, and Invisible Kid's like, "Oh, I got to go out and get a trans suit on." I'm like, why don't your belts or something have some kind of adaptive technology to say, hey, put an emergency trans suit on me, I'm in trouble.
And at that time, let's be real. John Byrne made magical auras, completely acceptable in every case. Before that, the Flash had an aura. That was it. And but then it was like, oh, Superman has one too. So now his clothes don't even get dirty because of this thing, right?
That's right.
So I guess like why not build it into the ring, let him put it on, and now you don't have to wash your uniform as much.
But I think you bring up a good point there with when you get to the reboot and they're putting their trans suits back on, and they've kind of taken 5 steps back technologically. And I remember when I was doing that reread, like that was something that really irritated me about the reboot. Is you're like, you can't go backwards. You're not saying this is a Silver Age story and we're going back to 2960 and they don't have any of this stuff. You're saying like it's, what is it? 3000 or let's just say 2997. We've already read in Legion comics that all of this stuff is possible. Why take 5 steps back? If you're doing the reboot, just say, we're just going to have every piece of tech that Levitz and Giffen did, but we're going to make them teenagers and we're going to bring them back. And it's the same complaint, like, when we get into Retroboot and Levitz takes over again, and they ignore everything from reboot, everything from 3-boot, and you're like, why are they flying? Like, why are these ships flying in space and running into each other when we've seen Stargates and we've seen? Why are we taking 5 steps back on the tech when we already know it's there? And I think that's one of those things when we talk about the technology of the Legion. Is there certain moments where you just say like, no, we're past this? Like it would be like if a new Star Trek series began and they said, we don't have teleporters. Like if we want to go down to the planet, we got to get in shuttles. And you just be like, what are you doing? Like
we already had a perfectly good thing that worked, right?
Right.
I think it feels to me, and you framing it that way kind of confirms it for me, is that was a more conscious decision. Like, we are throwing out everything that happened since I left the book. And so we still have a lot of those. Don't get me wrong, because Levitz and Giffen, man, they moved the Legion tech board so much further.
Oh yeah.
And but it was like any innovation since then, they could all go to hell, because that's not what we did.
Can.
Yeah.
Boom, right in the shredders.
The more I've read into this, the more I get the sense, and I hate to say this, I think it was Giffen pushing the tech.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
And I think Levitz would have been perfectly content to just keep it in. Like,
I think were you to ask him, he would be the first one to tell you that. When we spoke to him years ago, I remember him talking about how he would get pages back from Giffen, and it's like, oh, I got to make some changes here. And that's where a lot of that was, just because it was just this groundswell of ideas that Giffen had. It's like, well, why are we going to draw it that way? This looks much cooler. Color hold, and putting all that kind of stuff in. And yeah, so it was definitely more of a visual slickness that he was going for, especially early on. He actually, you'll notice, and it was kind of built in that we had the Magic Wars and tech died. So when 5 years later starts, they're building that stuff all up again. We're talking on screens. We're, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was that was definitely a visual thing. And to me, the fact that Giffen really leaned into the technology's dead, baby, we gotta start it all again. That's kind of proof positive on that, and it really shows that he was kind of driving a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Yep, I agree. All right. Anything else about transuits? That it was funny you thought it was a shorter conversation.
But tangents don't count. Yeah.
Yeah, we will take tiny minutia and drive it into the ground.
Tangents are free.
Yes. Tangents are free. It's like desserts on vacation. There's no calories.
They don't count.
That's right. All right. Jim, what's the next tech we want to go to?
Well, let's shift over. So since we were just kind of talking about how some of this stuff has been changed over the different years and eras, let's talk about the Legion Cruiser, because I think we can get a lot of mileage out of this one, just because there's so many different versions of this thing, and at least until they switched more to teleportation.
Right. And you can get more mileage out of it unless you let Colossal Boy drive it. Then it's crashing.
That's right. Yeah. Or Sunboy, I guess.
Well, that's fair. Yeah.
That's too soon. So, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I had to go there.
So that's the question. Who's the worst pilot in the Legion of the people who...
See, it seemed to me that it was most often Colossal Boy, but I think that's just because they were like, make the guy who grows drive. And so he just kind of became the default. Well, he's our pilot, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I could think of with that, is that, it was because of, obviously you drive more, you crash more. That's just a statistic thing. And as a guy who, works in insurance, I can tell you this. We have eggheads that can prove it.
That's right. Exactly right.
They could say Colossal Boy is the worst pilot.
Yeah.
Yes. The one thing I just want to call,
agree.
Who's the worst backseat driver in the Legion? Because I actually have an answer.
Oh my gosh.
Boy.
Maybe Wildfire.
So they just did I'm rereading Retroboot, right? I'm in like volume 7, and there's a scene where Lightning Lass is landing a ship, and Cosmic Boy's right behind her, telling her how to do it, and she's just like, "Yeah, I think I know how to fly." It's just pure mansplaining, and then and Lightning Lass is just like, "Yeah, I think I'm good. I've been flying these for a while."
That's great, man.
Come on. All right. So did another good bit of research here with this one over the last couple of days, just because there's, I'm a big spaceship fan. You can see my up above my shoulder there. We were talking earlier about there being this influence based on the 10 years prior into the visual style. And in the Silver Age, we really see that Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon look in the spaceships, right? Because they pretty much all look like those kind of ships that you see, where you have, basically a cylindrical missile type fuselage that has one main engine into it. And then over time, they kind of add more engines around the circumference of the cylinder, that sometimes they could be fins, other times they could be fins with other mini rockets on them. And then and in various ways, shapes, and forms, they just kind of keep adding those rockets so that they're even more cool looking as the time goes on.
And they could change from issue to issue as well.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And they did all the time. Yes. All the time. And it's not until I have a note here of Action 287, and they have I was on the Cosmic Teams website. The person who put that together did a really good write-up of the Legion cruisers. And they're pretty much all through the Silver Age. We have that rocket ship type look. When we get to Superboy 193, that's when we get the classic, they call it the Mark 10, Mark X cruiser, which is that more Star Trek looking vehicle, right? Where you have the saucer in the front, you have this engineering section, and then you have a couple nacelles.
Now, is this Grell era?
No, that's Cockrum.
Is that still Cockrum? Okay.
Oh, it's still Cockrum.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Cockrum comes in. He goes in first issue. He draws.
Yeah.
The ships are all changed.
Yeah.
So he's got a new look to it. Because I actually went in and went back through the archives, and I was like, I want to see exactly when we start seeing it in the background. And his first issue, it's and every issue they're changing, right? Like you can tell he's just, I like this look, I don't like this look. But you have the big disc in the front and the long neck, and then you've got so it's very, very Star Trek influenced. And then even he introduces a one-man ship that actually looks a ton like a Star Trek shuttle. Same sort of design as well. So you can tell he is, I've watched Star Trek. This is what I want this
definitely.
to look like.
And Grell picked right up on that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I remember talking to Grell about this, and he was like, oh, yeah, big Star Trek fan. And it was just, you know, and it was like, you know, what would they have done? What would be the next level of like an Enterprise or whatever? And, you know, that influence that lived on for a long time, because I think in cases after that, people were just like, let's do what did they use for a cruiser before? Yeah, let's do something like that. And definitely Star Trek influenced. And again, this is something that goes for a while, you know, and we talk about things now like, you know, flip phones and Star Trek communicators and the iPad / Omnicom, all based on that Star Trek pad. Like it was an indelible influence on, you know, artists a generation before we came along to reading it. And the ones that grew up at the same time as us. That covers a wide swath of what's going on in Legion comics.
Yeah,
that influence.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, this particular Star Trek-y cruiser, right? This stayed around for a good 10 years.
Absolutely. I mean,
if you saw that, you knew it was the Legion. Right?
Yeah.
If you didn't know anything else about that comic, that's what you could definitely pick
Giffen
out.
played around with it as well. Given how much he changed everything else, it was remarkable how much he kind of hewed to that classic vision of the cruiser.
And then later on, I think, and this is just around the time when Levitz comes back, we get the Mark 494s, and the 494 is basically a modded Type X, right? It's the disc is in the front, but it's a little bit modified, so there's like a chunk out of each side.
Okay.
So it could have weapons to it or
right,
something like that. But it's funny. The issue begins where they're at Nullport and somebody messes up their cruiser, and so they have to get something else.
Right.
To get these new ones.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, they're has them zooming out on these things that look like the Viper fighters from Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but you think those are the cruisers, but they're not. Those are just some kind of shuttle. The 494s are more like a modded X. Yeah. And then around the Great Darkness Saga time frame, we actually get the Model 9, or the Model 11, which is that flathead screwdriver. I called it the flathead screwdriver. A few episodes ago. Yeah, and that one stays around forever. Like that one goes into the reboot.
Kind of becomes the definitive version. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I mean, the only time you don't really see it is in the 3-boot because, you know, they're using teleporters all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, and then when you get to the retro boot, they actually have a modified version of that. It's basically that Mark 11 version, but there's like a ring around the rear fuselage, but it still has that same, you know, pointed snub look to it.
Yeah. That's so cool.
So yeah, I go way too deep into all this.
See, that to me, like I would buy the hell out of a model of the Legion cruiser, and
100%.
In a perfect world, you know, we have all this stuff, and and look, I'm building the Legion, you know, the Bronze Age Legion headquarters.
Oh my gosh! Unfortunately, I have no talent in this way, but I would love to be able to kit bash something like that together and have a really cool
for sure.
So here's my open call now to any listener who knows how to use AutoCAD and build something that you can use on a a 3D printer. Like if you can put together any of these ships, like there's a bunch of people who I'm pretty sure would be most happy to pay a little money to
100%.
get this. And there's people I know in Blue Sky who I think could paint and make these look amazing as well.
Totally,
like
totally.
There's definitely a market here, especially for these ships. Like
we find that all the time,
and we have the tech now to do it. Right?
Yeah, like the things that I see people doing with figure builds and that kind of thing on our Facebook group is amazing. Like guys who create these amazing versions of various Legionnaires and various Legion stuff, whether it be Fortress Lad or whatever. And it's absolutely incredible. So there is a huge amount of talent out there that's doing this stuff. And we say, do more. We're in.
Hey, turn it into a business. I'd be happy to pay money for some of this stuff,
Yeah, there's probably a bit of a problem for them to be earning some coin off it, which is sad. But
Yeah. I don't know. That's what crypto's for, isn't it? So nothing can be tracked. You just
he's just a dog, Jay. That's why he's untraceable.
All right. And I'm trying to think what else with the cruisers. Yeah, I mean, I think the gold, there's the two kind of great designs, and they're just so perfectly Legion. Like that's what I kind of like about them. Or even I think of like when we talked about Null Porter, when we talked about the issues where they go to Kundia and then they end up on the asteroid, and of course Colossal Boy is the one piloting that.
Of course he is.
Crashes into the asteroid, and they all go out in like their personal 2-man cruisers to go find them, and it's 4 different designs of ships, and again, you can tell Giffin's just having a blast doing this, and that all of those. It's just so many great ideas,
and it's also like right around when Empire Strikes Back came out, and right, that. So it's very much of that era where it's like we're stuck someplace very, very cold. What do we do? And that worked out. Worked out better for Timberwolf than most of the others.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, let me ask you guys a question before we move off of the cruiser stuff. Because we've had, across Legion history, we've had the cruisers. We've also had teleportation in various forms. When we get this new book, what would you rather see from a Legion transportation perspective?
I'm a cruiser guy. Let them have that bit where they approach and decide on their course of action. And the teleporting directly to the thing, it leaves them to what the hell's going on? Okay, do this, but having that, and again, it comes from, growing up a Star Trek fan too, is that we approach, we look at what's going on, and we deploy. And it just, I don't know, strategically seems to make more sense, and we get a cool vehicle out of it too.
Jay, what about you?
Kind of the same thing. I want the Stargates back, and I'm sure we're going to talk about those later. Where I mean, to me, in a perfect one, they're on Earth, they're at their head HQ, they're like, we got to go to this planet. They get into a Stargate and they're there immediately. So we no longer have to have those moments in comics where you go, hey, how did the guy fly all over the galaxy in 5 minutes? Let's just get the Stargates back. But I really like Paul's idea of, and it is a Star Trek idea of,
totally
get around the planet, do some recon, or like we talked about when we talked about Invisible Kid, right? Like send the espionage squad down first and let them figure out what's going on, and then they can report back. Like show them more as actually thinking before they go into action, which would just be a nice thing to see.
Like almost a reconnaissance force, right? Like,
exactly.
like again, assess the situation and then say, okay, you can do this, you can do that. And, they've got their playbook. We know they've got their playbook. And it's like, this is going to be a 278A, which is whatever the first thing they did in the Reflecto saga was.
Stand around and argue and fight camels? Is that what we're going
to well, no, just, okay, Ultra Boy's going to be the jealous boyfriend. Well, no, sorry. Reflecto is going to be the jealous boyfriend, and so on and so forth.
Now, I'm going to agree with both you guys. I think I'm a traditionalist where, I think we need more cruisers. Frankly, I found the teleportation technology to be a little bit more overpowerful because it maybe it's good to have it in some cases, but to be able to say I can literally go anywhere, I don't know. I think there's something to be said for having transit times where, just like we're saying here, you get a time for other stuff to happen. You can have interpersonal stuff happening between the characters on the ship. You can have, more explorations of threats. You could have, you can change the scene to another team in the Legion doing something else, right? I think it gives you a little bit more breadth of storytelling.
Yeah, like, do you think, I mean, again, I know that the idea of it is expediency. It's like, have them find out there's a threat and then have them be there dealing with it. But there is something to be said as a storytelling device. Here's what's happening. And then it's like, okay, you go do this. And this is why I referred to like the playbook, because it's like, you don't have to get into what they need to do because we're going to see them do it. And so, off you go.
No, don't tell.
But but it shows their strategic nature. Like, this is the point of having a team of this many members, is that you have some strategic leadership that can say, this is the best way to use you and you and you, and away we go. And, and this dates back to like the earliest of superheroes team stories where we had, the Justice Society, and it's like, we're pairing this guy, and this guy because they have the right blend for this. And there's your playbook right there. Yeah.
For sure.
And also we get a cruiser.
Another way we can kind of actually, you could have both depending on the scenario. And I was just thinking about it while we were talking. In the 3 boot, the way they kind of, I guess, throttled the capability of the teleportation was that you put a cost on it. Right. So if you have a very, very powerful technology, you have to make it, you can use it, but you have to pay for it somehow. Right. And so that's one way you can even still do both things, but not be too reliant on that.
Totally. But then you get into a bit of, Star Wars prequel. Let's talk about the economy of.
Oh my gosh.
And you got the bean counter.
Oh, come on. That was the most exciting moments in Star Trek when they just sat around talking about government. So, and then sadly became memeable when it all came true in the last year.
God, don't get me started.
In the last year.
So I was going to say the other thing that I don't like about the teleportation to just get you anywhere in the galaxy is I think there should be a sense of how big the galaxy is. Like, I don't want it to feel like, hey, we have a problem on Rimbor, and that's like flying from Metropolis to Central City. Like, I want there to be look, this is a gigantic amount of space. Like, the amount of time to travel is insane. Like, one of the things I really loved in Legion worlds was when, all the Stargates are down and suddenly traveling to, Wynath or Wynath or whatever, however it was pronounced in the reboot, took like 6 months.
Yeah.
And so like the news, and you got that sense of like, this is a gigantic space. Like this is, like it's not easy to get around. And I think
it's a big galaxy. Notice how none of those planets are in our solar system, and there should be a penalty. I don't know, maybe not a penalty, but again, a cost, whether it be time or whatever, that is like, holy crap, that's far away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, we're going to use a Stargate, but even then, we got to get to that Stargate, and then we got to transfer at this Stargate, and and the crosstown Stargate only runs on Sundays.
Yeah. And then you've got the cruiser, which has all of your stuff, so you don't just want to fly in with just your flight ring and nothing else.
Right.
You've got like the tech that you're bringing, and and you could even say like, the closest Stargate is like 5 light years away. So even when we get there, we still have to go. Like, you could have a lot of fun with this, and just like, rather than, I remember that was one of the things that bothered me in that Dark Side Saga of like the DNA one, where they were pulling, like they're saying like there's 627 Stargates or whatever it is, and we're pulling energy from all of them, and I was just like, what? Like, like it kind of just broke your brain a little bit about how massive this is. Where if they just said like, we've got a Stargate here, and you've still got a day's travel to get to everything else, and you could really get the sense of like, and then there's that economic cost. Like, a Stargate costs such an insane amount of money for Brand to set it up.
Well, and there's some things where it's like, man, we can't get there, and do we have anyone who's already near there? You're right. The size of the galaxy should be like you say, it's not like I got to go 3 blocks uptown. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It where there is like can we even get there in time? Like, this situation is going to have developed so much further by the time we arrive. And and I think that can also, that also is a thing, where it's like, like we say, as they arrive, we want to do that assessment of the situation. It's like, wow, stuff has gone pear-shaped since we left to get here.
And the other thing is, you can use that as a justification for why you have the Heroes of Lawler, or why the Wanderers are doing something, or why maybe Xanthu doesn't want Starboy to come back or to join the Legion because they need him on the Amazers. Like, you could have so much fun with this.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah.
Like
an excuse to use this larger universe that's been created.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's again, there's so much you can play with here if you just sort of put a little bit of technical limitation. But as soon as you say, like, yeah, you can teleport wherever you want, then, like, I remember that was one of my problems with the annual in volume 6, where it happens on our rando, and the Emerald Empress has been destroying everybody for a year, and Projectra has no clue anything's going on, but yet Gates can teleport her immediately. And I'm like, why have you not gone back? Like, why are there not, like, you're the queen of this planet.
You
like,
should check in from time to time. Yeah.
But if they had said, like, Orando's like, a month journey to get there, or it's like this big problem, and then you're okay, now this makes sense. Like, a month's passed and Emerald Empress has taken over, and Sensor Girl at that point, but we'll just say Jackie goes back to check on her, and that would make sense.
Yeah.
But when it's just I'm here, like, right. Like, have those limitations work. So
totally.
Maybe should we talk about Stargates, or have we done enough on Stargates to just explain that tech?
And I mean, the Stargates are, I think it's worth mentioning, because the idea was that, in the olden days, back when I was a boy, R.J. Brand made stars, and we liked it that way.
And get off my lawn.
Yeah.
And
forget about the fact that it would destroy the entire system with that extra.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I've created this, incredible source of heat and gravity, and but the idea, and I think it was one of the great inventions of the reboot, because it not only made a bit more sense out of all that, but it, in that. Now it's like, it's all about transportation for him. He has like a definite thing that he makes, and it also adds to some storytelling ease, and it kind of made more sense out of what he does. And the Stargates, oh my gosh, it makes things a lot easier for this, that, and the other thing. And you've got one of them here and one of them there, but you still got to get them there.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And that to me is what becomes very interesting. It's not like it's like I can go through this Stargate and end up anywhere I want. No, there's got to be something. There's got to be a receiver on the other end. And absolutely. And what a great device.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of weird things too. There's, as we found out in the reboot, what was it? Chromium that was the secret ingredient to the Stargates.
Yeah.
So we were just talking about scarcity or having a cost to whatever this technology is. Is this basically Janara's job for the rest of his life?
They wiped out everyone else that does it.
Yep.
Jay, to your point earlier of like all those however many thousands of Stargates they had in the DNA run, that's a lot of Stargates. That's a lot of chromium. I don't know.
It is. You're right. You're right. Jan's like, I don't have time to be a Legionnaire anymore. He's like the Dunkin' Donuts guy. He wakes up and he's like, gotta make the chromium. But think about that. God. But what is their business, and again, this goes into, oh yes, please give me the comic about this. Yeah. Where it's like, what is the business continuity plan, right? Like, what if something happens to Janara? Like, we're done with Stargates, right?
And, exactly. How do you make this stuff? If there's nobody else to do it? I don't know.
What you do is you have Triplicate Girl hold on to a piece, triplicate, then hold on to those 3 pieces and triplicate, and we just keep building more.
And so on and so on. Yeah. Exactly. I think, you know what? I think we figured out the business plan.
There we go. There we go. What a great issue that will be. We're going to get the flight ring guy to draw it.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
I want the issue to start with Jen getting out of bed, getting a cup of coffee, and just going, God,
Gotta make the
and it's
tromium.
just making tromium, and then
my
back to the
God.
tromium mines, and
That's
then
right.
he's like going.
That's
Great
right.
time's over. Back on your head.
Yeah.
So-
no wonder he's so spacey. No wonder he turned evil.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
serious
seriously.
life. Like,
I get it. It's much more sympathetic
Yeah.
now. Well, so when we talk about the Stargates and it goes into some hyperspace, it seemed to be there's two ways people talk about Stargates in sci-fi. It's either you, like you mentioned, Paul, you have the sender and the receiver,
Yeah.
and it's an instant path through, or you go into some hyperspace, you wander around a little bit to wherever the exit point is, and that's where the receiver point is. And that's like in Babylon 5.
Yeah, and a lot of that sort of hyperspace stuff is kind of, there's a lot of, quantum physics basis to that, and and it's kind of a a theoretical physicist playground for what do we need it to be.
Yeah.
But the idea of a defined warp, you come in here, you come out there. And we saw that in the most recent Superman movie too, right?
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, like those are essentially Stargates.
Yeah.
And so there it was, again, it's the sender, it's the the sender and the receiver. And so again, you still got to build them. So it doesn't mean you can get everywhere instantaneously. It means you can get to the serviced areas.
Yes. Yeah.
And like, hey, the best sci-fi is metaphor, right? And there's one we've all dealt with. And what happens when they go down?
Yeah.
We had to do a rerun the other week because my internet was down for the day.
Wow.
It was a dark. That was a dark day.
I was going to say, there's your issue. There's the perfect one. The guy who's maintaining the Stargates, and he's just like, he's out in space and he's fixing, or do it like Office Space, right? Tell us what you do here. And he's like, look, if I fix another Stargate, it's no more money for me. Like, I'm not making another extra. And I got to fill out these 30, TPS reports.
Oh, the TPS
all I'm
report.
doing
We're
is
going to need you to come in on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to need
running
you
out
to...
of tromium all the time. Like,
I'm going to need you to come in on Saturday to make some more tromium. Yeah.
There we go. DC Comics, give us a call.
Oh, my gosh.
We have your 6-issue series.
The amazing 30th century economics issues they're missing.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. I mean, God, the money they're leaving on the table.
That's right.
Hire us,
That's
guys.
right.
Come on, let's go.
They're like, don't worry about it. We'll just get Triplicate Girl to hold on to it and triplicate. So
Exactly.
That's the Cargite's job. Every Cargite has to show
the
up.
tromium's got to make the tromite's got to make the tromium. The Cargite's got to make more money.
Man. All right.
Next piece of tech we want to talk about here.
Your turn, Jay.
Yeah.
You pick.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. I said this before we started recording because it's my favorite goofy piece of tech from the 30th, 31st century, the Miracle Machine.
Baby.
If for the listeners, if you don't know what the Miracle Machine is, it's basically it's the cure for everything in the 70s. It was introduced, Adventure Comics 367, which, by the way, just for a pure tech issue, I advise everybody to go check it out because the first half of it is it's Jim Shooter getting Brainiac 5. Jim Shooter's written it. It's like, here's what the new headquarters are going to look like. Here's all of our new tech. Here's our new ships. And we talked about those like 50 styles rocket ships. They're there.
Yeah.
They've got guns for Shrinking Violet. They've got guns for Colossal Boy. And then there's this weird box with this stuff with weird writing on it that they don't know what it is. And it's revealed at the end that it's this machine that was created by the controllers, and basically it will make any wish you have come true. And so to save the day, Brainiac, the Dark Circle invades Earth and basically is wrecking everything. So Brainiac 5 wishes that all of them were off the planet, and in a move that would definitely get him kicked out of the Legion because he's basically sending them all into space. He gets rid of all of them by making a wish. Then he wishes, and the headquarters is now built, and it looks perfect. And then at the very end, the controller shows up and says, "Hey, don't use this because it's going to destroy your continuum, and this thing's bad." And then for the next, I'd say, decade, it kind of just floats in the background in Legion stories. It sits in their, I want to say, trophy room, wrapped in Innertron. And about once a year, they kind of something will happen. Like somebody will try to steal it, or
Yeah.
they'll need it for a story, or they'll just talk about it like, hey, we got this machine. Nobody touch it because bad things are going to happen. And it's just this fascinating, like, it's something you can just tell, like, a kid created this.
Yeah.
Shooter.
Yeah.
And he didn't think about any of the things that would go on. And then it just became, what's the best way to put it? Kind of like I don't want to say Chekhov's gun, but it's just this thing that floats in the background of stories.
If they mention it, it's getting used.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the biggest thing with it is, yes, we have those initial uses, but then is when Omega comes in, again, created by Brainiac 5, because guys never made anything that isn't going to kill a couple of Legionnaires or blow up their headquarters. And,
oh, my God.
And so he creates this guy, and so he's going after the Miracle Machine and is going to destroy the universe with it. And so Tenzel goes and Tenzel Cam, Matter Eater lad, goes in and takes it off the board by eating it, because it is what he does. and he eats it, and it drives him crazy. And that's kind of the initial thing, right? Like we're told from early on that, the way they took, I swear Levitt, it was like Levitz wanted it, he didn't do it, but certainly wanted it so that nobody would vote him as Legion leader. And because if you'll remember, when he came back and started doing Legion elections again, the first thing he did was take Comet Queen off the board, because he knew. And God knows I was mounting quite a campaign for, let's make her Legion leader. And but so it takes Tenzel off the board, but then Giffen kind of brings him back on the board, and it's like everything Tenzel does, he does his TV show, he does his legal thing, and what you realize as you get into it is that he's bending reality around himself, because he still has the energy of the Miracle Machine inside him. And so it's like, oh my God, all these things that happen in these Tenzel-based issues, some of my favorites, are crazy, right? Like, absolutely, like that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, no, but that's the way he wanted it to go. And he's a walking Miracle Machine. And so he bent reality around him to actually do that stuff. And that, to me, was the most fascinating part of it. It's like, oh my God, you've got this guy who can basically do anything, but doesn't, because he wants to do a show about digging up the Batcave, and
right.
Or he, it's trust me, I'm a senator, and so it was always funny that he went off to because he was pressed into political duty on Bismol, Pepto, and he was a Pepto senator, and then comes back to save the Legion by literally eating this device that can do anything. I mean, basically, again, he bends reality around him. And then, of course, years later, Superman uses it in Final Crisis to basically rebuild the multiverse, based on how he remembers it, right? So he rebuilds it using the Miracle Machine, and which has apparently been puked up by Tenzel. So all good, all good. Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on which period in time you go to get it.
So I think first, we now know who has to be our guest for the Matter Eater Lad episode.
Oh my God, second, yes. Please, I beg of you.
10 rounds
making the note right now.
10 rounds of how much I hate every Matter Eater Lad issue during 5 years later, and you and I can just fight back and forth on that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I know. I'm in the minority here, but
to me, they're the best issues of the series.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating story, because you had not seen Matter Eater Lad for a couple of years.
Yeah.
By the time that story happens, like, he had been written out. It's like, you're now a politician. And I remember that, like, reading that issue is so funny, because it's like, do I deserve to be a Legionnaire? Like, I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough, which is about 4 different Legion stories of the early 70s.
Yes.
And then he decides, no, I'm good enough. And then the people of Bismol show up and are like, nope, you're coming with us. You've been drafted into politics.
Screw your destiny.
That's right.
Yeah. We don't care what you want. And it's like, all right, we've just lost a Legionnaire. Well, I guess it's better than, they didn't kill him like they killed an Invisible Kid, but there
is that.
It's still a good thing.
Paul, it's funny though when you were talking and made the comment about Tenzil being kind of a walking improbability, right? You made me think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It is totally that. No, it is 100% that. Yes.
Right, and so it makes me wonder: were these guys fans of that? I'm sure they were.
Yeah, come on. Giffen is a fan of sci-fi and comedy. You think he doesn't love Hitchhiker's Guide?
Exactly. Exactly. But so here we go with the other obvious Hitchhiker's Guide thing are the telepathic earplugs.
Yes.
Right.
Oh my God.
Because
yes.
That's basically a Babelfish. But the telepathic earplugs came before the Babelfish in Hitchhiker's Guide.
It's true. And also when I think of telepathic earplugs, I think of how every phone call I take on my phone is with one of these in my ear. I'm holding up an AirPod to the camera, folks. Every time I put that thing on, that, it's like, and it connects immediately to my phone and I have my conversation through that. It's like, it's the damn telepathic earplug.
Yeah. And they even have the services now where, at least my wife has one of the more advanced AirPods where it will actually translate if you turn on the features right.
Yes, it does. It does. I haven't had a chance to test it, but yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Although,
we got little tiny digital Babelfish. Come on.
So could we then say that Douglas Adams might have been a Legion fan?
That's what I'm wondering.
Considering the first time I could find them mentioning the telepathic earplug was the issue with the devilfish.
Yes.
And Mon-El puts it into the fish's ear, and that's how he's able to find out that he's not actually a bad guy.
Well, I mean, it's entirely possible. And sadly, we'll never know. But
I know.
No.
I think, he was a guy who took in kind of everything around him. And so it wouldn't surprise me, although the reach into the UK at the time of the Legion was less than it is these days, or less than it was even 10 years after. But man, he was a sponge for that stuff. And I had the pleasure of meeting him once. And
oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
He was doing a book signing on university campus where I work, and I drove him from lunch to the signing. And
oh wow.
And struggled not to be like Chris Farley. Remember that time when
that's right.
Remember that time when the answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything was 42? Do you remember that? And he'd be like, yes, I remember that. And I'm like, that was cool. And just an amazing guy, like lovely guy, just real soft spoken. But it was the idea of like, I wish I'd taken that time to like, what were your biggest influences? And the answer would have been everything.
Yeah, exactly.
He was, and it is what a lot of our favorite Legion writers did, is they took in everything around them, and eventually also, took in things like Hitchhiker's Guide, because God, like, you want to talk about like, the infinite improbability drive, right? Like, you want to talk about living, breathing miracle machines. Well, there it is.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly right.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really weird because I always feel like I sound like old man yelling at clouds when you talk to people who are like in their 20s, or when they talk about being creative, and I always say, like, read everything.
Yeah.
Like, watch everything.
Yeah.
Like, don't just sit there and say like, oh, I love, and I think you always see this with comic editors, like, don't read comics, like, read everything else. If you're going to make a comic book, draw everything else. Don't just draw superheroes, because you want to bring everything to it. And the problem is that, I mean, like, when I was 20, I thought I knew everything, and I thought old people were stupid. And so I can see that face coming back at me, and I'm like, no, I swear I'm not. Like, I know the gray hair tells you that.
It reminds me of that, and I remember my dad telling me this. And it was everybody attributes it to someone different, whether it be Winston Churchill or Mark Twain. But it was that when I was 18, I thought my parents knew absolutely nothing. When I was 25, I was amazed at how much they'd learned in the last 7 years. And it is this idea of like, it's all about, absorbing a bit from everything. Like, all the technology we've talked about pulls from different things, right? It pulls from sci-fi novels. It pulls from Star Trek. It pulls from other comics. It's, if you read only one thing, you're only getting part of the picture. And all the good writers all the really good writers will tell you, like, yeah, no, there's a ton of stuff goes into this. The really great ones are just like, yeah, I read everything, and and synthesized all these ideas from that. And when you think of something like the Miracle Machine, where it is literally Deus ex machina, right? Like it is literally God in the machine, right?
Yeah.
And it was a 13-year-old kid who was like, I should do this. Seriously, like that to me is absolutely incredible. But they had to move it off the stage so often because it's like, it's too easy.
But I will say this, with the tech in the Legion, it seems like when it's the young creators, like Shooter as a kid, and then young Carrie Bates, and then young Levitz and Giffen, that's when the tech gets pushed. And I'll even put DNA in this as well. Like, they're young creators who are pushing tech. And it seems like when the tech gets stagnant, it's when it's the older established creators who are like, nope, this is the way we've always done it. And this is how,
Levitz comes back and says, let's move it back to 1989. Yeah. Good point.
And we have one of our podcasts, like we have the moment where Chris Battista actually says like, hey, can we do some different tech in this book? And Levitz is like, nope. And he's like, but they already have, like, we already had Stargates. And Levitz is like, we're not doing any of that. and
I didn't write that.
Yeah. And you could just see Battista going like, I drew this in a Legion comic. Like but it just couldn't exist. Right. And it's kind of funny, like reading over all this tech stuff and you see like Shooter's just throwing stuff at the wall and like, let's just come up with new names. I almost want to give Carrie Bates like even more credit because every issue he's like, let's talk about cloning. Let's talk about, like, he's throwing all of this stuff and
very much. And that's a really good
going
point.
Nuts with the tech. And I think he's like 21, 22 when he's doing this.
It's like pretty young.
Guy. He's probably just, I've read all these books.
And think about this, when he did Flash, he was the first one who really like got into depth on like the physics of what the Flash did, right? And it was like, how do we sync this up with actual properties of physics? And not a thing that a lot of people were doing at the time. And it makes a lot of sense. So when you say that, it's like, he was pushing stuff a lot further. He was and looking at like, what are the implications of this? Like with the cloning and like, with Soldiers War and all that. Wow. Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. If he'd only known he was going to destroy the Legion, like 20 years later when they brought the clones back into
all your fault, Bates.
Yes. You did this. So. All right. I was going to say there's one last big thing of tech that I think we want to talk about, and then we can get sort of nitty gritty in this. And that's got to be the headquarters itself, the clubhouse.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Fortress Lad.
Of course, the first headquarters is just a superhero turned into a headquarters.
Yes.
But I'm sure he got a flight belt as a rejected applicant.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm glad that it ended up being a hero anyway, because, if you think about it, it's their clubhouse, was a rocket that just kind of nosedived into the ground. And I'm like, you really want to have a clubhouse kind of like that? That's kind of...
It's quite a symbol.
So sorry. I think before we do this, we have to explain the insanity of the Fortress Lad reference for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, sorry, I'm making assumptions.
No, because it's one of those things like we all know it, and I'm thinking there's somebody listening going, what are they talking about? So who would like to explain this insanity in Legion history?
Okay.
Paul is our guest. Would you like to take it?
Yeah, so here's the thing. At some point, this story was written, and I think it probably grew out of something, as many things did in the 90s with relation to the Legion. Someone had a discussion in one of the fanzines, whether it be Interlac or the Legion Outpost or whichever one you want to take, right? Like they all had various, where people would talk about fan theories, right? And so a lot of the stuff, like the idea of Lightning Lad actually being Prody, as he always has been, always will be, and the idea that a lot of these things that showed up in 5 years later, right? Where they took one of these fan theories, Eltrogan to Mon-El being, the split and Eltrogan being that sort of dominant personality in Mon-El.
Right.
A lot of these things stemmed from that. And whether this one did or not, I'm not entirely sure. But basically, at some point, there was a in the Secret Origins series of the late 80s and through the 90s. The idea was that they would have like an issue with some Golden Age characters and then they would do something modern and all that kind of thing. And so we had one with Fortress Lad, and he was created by artist Kurt Swan and writer He Who Shall Not Be Named. We get a couple of Legionnaires rejected, including Mnemonic Kid. It's no easier to say now than it was back when the movie came out. But basically, they get rejected, and she's like, well, I don't want that. So it takes this guy named Fortress Lad who literally has like a jumpsuit that looks like what would become the Legion's headquarters. She's like, we should take revenge on them. And he says, no, certainly not. And so she tries to shoot the Legionnaires and he jumps in front of them, activates his powers, and this lets him surround them with his frame and become like a headquarters, like a building around them. And so she keeps shooting at them, but he's shielding them from it. But in doing this, he loses all of his memories and forgets that he's not actually a headquarters and ends up basically, he removes some of the Legion's memories of this, so they don't remember that he was an applicant who saved their lives by becoming a building, and he becomes their headquarters, Fortress Lad.
The worst part about that story is that when you said the writer, He Who Shall Not Be Named, my first thought is I can think of at least 3 or 4 people.
No, it's a very specific one.
No, and I know but I was like, the bad part is, it could be this person. Or
that's very sad. Yeah, but no, it's... yeah,
and don't have to say it.
No. But sadly, also, and I don't mean to discount the things that were written, because like if you ever read the book he wrote about comics history, it's incredible, one of the best, and that really sucks.
Yeah,
right.
The best book written about the Montreal Expos was written by somebody who is a complete piece of human garbage, and it's
there you go.
Yeah, like there's those books you're like, I hate that I have this, but it's
totally get it.
Yeah, it's not good. Anyways, so for those of you who didn't know the story of Fortress Lad, so it's a person who became a building and then lost all their memories and is stuck as a building, and just a tragic story.
Totally.
Just horrible. So that's the original, the OG headquarters. And then, so how did they handle that when it got destroyed? Like,
well, they
so
just junked it they just kind of tossed it in the junkyard for a while.
Yeah.
The Cubs took over.
I mean, that was before the retcon that made him a And to be fair, that was an unpublished story. Just saying.
That's right. Yeah. Right. But we end up getting them to use it again when we get to the SW6 Legion and Legionnaires, because they haul it back and put it back into Metropolis for the young Legion to use as their headquarters.
Yeah.
So it comes full circle.
It does, yeah. Again, not official continuity by any stretch.
And then we get the second Legion HQ, which was actually the issue that I was talking about earlier. What did I say? Adventure 367.
Yep.
Right? And that's I always think brown. That's the brown building, or is it just bad coloring and it's supposed to be
it's bad coloring. It looks more orangey to me. But
there you go. Orange, brown. Yep. And that lasts, when did they get rid of that?
That got destroyed in 251 because of wildfire. Wildfire. But then the
Omega story that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And then it gets rebuilt. And then we get those great moments that always drive me nuts where the Legionnaires are actually become construction workers. And I always think, how in the 30th century do they not have machines to do this?
I know. Well, I guess they're super powered so they can do things faster. But I always remember that particular story stretch by the folks who were left on Earth to rebuild the headquarters had a lot of folks, a lot of couples stepping out on each other. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
So, but that's the 70s. What are you going to do?
Exactly. So it's the Legion version of a key party.
So that's right. So so that gets rebuilt and it's, back to the same one. And then that stays up until Legion 311. And when when Caputo and Brainy decide to kind of let things run amok. And then just like in the Voltron cartoon, the new headquarters rises from the ashes and floats in the air, which is a cool design. I gotta say.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites for sure.
So just a couple things I wanted to point out, especially for this. So I think it's Legion Annual 1, right? Which is just a great issue, but it does have a cross section of the new HQ in there as well. And they do show everything. If you're interested in that kind of tech, if you're interested in how they put the building together, that's a really great thing that Giffen put together. And the whole story actually just takes place in all the different levels of this headquarters. So they really show it at its best. I'd recommend taking a look at that one. Yeah. I really liked the second one. That's mainly the headquarters during version 3.
Yeah,
where it's floating and I can't remember which issue they do the cross section for that, but I know it's in there.
No, that's a good question. I'm not sure either. The only reason I know it is because they do have a cross section of it in the Mayfair supplement.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
Yeah, and the cool thing. Well, I shouldn't say cool. The very interesting choice when they get the new Legion headquarters is at the same time they fix Computo. So Computo becomes, they call him the Major Domo, basically the operating system of the HQ. And it's kind of funny. Like I always thought like, no, Brainiac 5 wasn't a jerk or a sociopath. Like he was just, super smart, whatever. And then the more you read, you go, no, he was an ass. And then this one, it's like, hey, I'm going to have Duo Damsel relive her greatest trauma every time she comes back.
Oh my God, right? Yeah. And like, okay. So, to dovetail into Computo a little bit, right? And I say this, I am literally connected at the moment to a Wi-Fi network that is called Computo. And, I don't know what I was thinking naming it that way. No wonder my internet went down the other week.
There you go.
Yeah,
there
right?
You go.
What could possibly go wrong if I use this circuitry again? But it is, emblematically, it is Brainiac 5's greatest success and greatest failure. Right? He created this thing, Shooter ended up getting them to use it again for Ultron. This idea of like, I created this thing that's going to be so great. Oh my God, guys, check out how cool this is. Oh, it totally killed you. Oh, yeah, that's bad. And so, so he goes to use it to cure this young girl, Danielle Fokar. And it's like, oh, that went bad. Yeah, nope, that was terrible. And, this is just as they have rebuilt that headquarters, as you said earlier. And then we go on and he just crazy, right? And then it's like, oh no, now we'll use it to rebuild the whole headquarters. It's like, are you
I know.
kidding me?
Oh,
I know.
And the worst part, there's many worse parts.
So many.
What body does he put Computo into?
Mini Validus.
It's a little mini Validus. So, hey, like 2 of the creators that have killed Legionnaires, let's turn them into
Put them like
the system that's running our HQ.
He's 2 of the founders' kid. And we knew
great things that go together.
Did we know that by then? I think we did.
So,
a mini Validus. You're right. Like God, like what next? Like, hey, can we also give him like, a Roxas t-shirt?
Right.
Madness.
Well, see there's another issue that I wanted to see was like the Norgs coming in for like a memorial and they walk in. It's like, what the what's wrong with you people?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like, gee, you've already replaced our son. And now you've got
and it makes me think of like, every time you see on like a cop show where one of the officers has been killed in the line of duty, with guns and they show like the 21 gun salute during the funeral and everybody has the big flinch and it's like, okay, we get it. But it's like that. It's like, boy, they killed him with 1 shot. Well, here's 21 of them. And same thing when you get this. It's like, not only do we have a little Validus showing you around, but there's a whole bunch of them over there serving canapes.
Well, I always think of that one joke of like, what would Jesus think when he comes back and everybody's wearing literally his worst day around their neck and they have it hanging up on the wall and he's like, what's wrong with you people? Like I was tortured for 3 days.
That was not great. That was not great for me.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy that. Like it was, the nails and the hands.
So
like,
bad.
I forget which comedian did that joke, but it was I'm not claiming it for myself.
Yeah,
but that moment was like, what
all
are
I
you
know is
doing?
his Swamp Thing issue would have been canceled. So
Yes.
deep cut there,
All right.
kids.
Yeah. And then since we're moving on to Computo, we get the reboot Computo, who is, what is it? Part mother box, part Omnicom, and part responsometer.
Yes. Yeah. The metalman.
Yeah. All of the things, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Brainiac 5 always making things that suck.
And I say this like, you know, guys, like here's the lock screen on my iPhone, right? Because that's exactly what it is. It is a mother box. And you know, like the idea of taking some of the most pliable technologies, right? Because the mother box can do everything. So can a responsometer. And what was the other one? What was the middle one?
An Omnicom.
Oh, of course, yeah. So
basically the device that has all the information of 1,000 years in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it is the precursor to AI slop, and
really.
you know, we're only as a society, we're just starting to see the results of such a thing. But yeah, it is it is Brainiac 5 taking a bunch of things and just let's throw them together, see what happens.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong, indeed?
We got to get home. We got to get back to the future. So let's make the
Then build a flux capacitor, Brandy. Come on.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
Right.
You just need a DeLorean. You'll be fine. So, all right. We're getting close to our end here. And I think we could probably just keep talking for another hour or so.
Oh,
but
God.
I want to get to sort of a wrap up here. So I just wanted to sort of really quickly, is there one piece of Legion tech that we haven't talked about?
Time bubble.
We haven't talked about time bubbles. So, Jim, what have you got on time bubbles? We got to make sure we cover this.
Well, I mean, time bubble, this is the OG thing, right? This is one of those pieces of tech that's been there from the absolute very beginning, right? In Adventure 247.
It is how we have the Legion, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a foundational thing. We probably should have started with this, but that's okay. But this is here around, up through the Crisis, right? And actually, I guess we get a little bit beyond because they do try to go into the future to battle the Time Trapper. But yeah, it's been a very consistent thing, except when we get to the reboot, they call it as a time platform, so it's a little bit different. And then we don't see anything like that at all in the 3 boot. So
yeah.
And I love the fact that we had like time cube, time bubble, time platform, time cabinet actually made one appearance. And I just kept picturing so it's what, like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
Yeah, exactly. It totally is. Have you ever seen the movie Primer? Where it's look it up. It is great, but it is basically a time travel movie that involves them basically in this closet that takes them to another era, and it's actually a really smartly written time travel story. But think about this is the idea of obviously time travel is an important part of the Legion. It is literally how we find out about them. And, but you don't really get anything with it until we get that issue with Universo and Ron Vidar, right? Mm-hmm. So we get that's the time cube, and that's what they use for the first while. And then at some point it becomes the time bubble and becomes like a huge thing for them, to the point where at some point they have to kind of get rid of them because, wow, we're really relying on this a lot. And but that whole idea of a device that allows them to go to different places in time, it allows them, to bring their sources of inspiration, your Superboys, your Supergirl, into the future. To interact with them. And I think that provides an important connection to the modern day that it can't be overlooked that when that disappears, things go a little cattywampus here. Mm-hmm. And so I'd say the time bubble is foundational. It is sort of where we come from. What I would love to see is to see that kind of dovetailed with Stargates, right? Time and space, right? Let's bring them together. And the reboot, they depended a little bit less at first on the time travel side of it, and then they leaned right into it because it's like, well, it lets them integrate with the rest of the DC universe. Yeah. And they were looking for anything that would make a dent in sales, and it did for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, again, like I say, the time bubble is fairly foundational. It's just not as cool as a flight ring, or is it? I don't know. I don't know.
No, I mean,
Well, we'll see.
I think it's pretty cool, right? Because like you said, it's a way to get to expand the storytelling universe, right? I mean,
Yeah.
generally speaking, I'm one of the people that says, generally speaking, the Legion and the mainstream DCU shouldn't really mix much, right? Because
Definitely no
weird,
crossovers. Definitely,
yeah, right. But also, it avoids any weird, how should I put this, temporal anomalies,
Yes.
right, that might get left if people change things in the future.
Mm.
But on the other hand, right, when my brain goes to the other side of the argument and says, well, it doesn't really matter because time is always in flux. So, they can go back and have an adventure and then come back to the future, but it doesn't really matter, if it doesn't do anything or not, right?
Yeah.
Because the time is always in motion because things can change based on what other people do. So
100%. Yeah.
Well, except for the problems like when the Sun Eater is going to destroy the sun in the 20th century, and you're like, well, then the Legion couldn't exist because there's no Earth. Those are the problems that I have when they jump back in.
I think we're fine. Look at these guys from the future.
Look, we're okay.
It all works out.
I think what I like the most about the time bubble is I think it's just a great visual, like the way they put it on the page.
Sure.
And it's looked good for decades. And it kind of doesn't matter what artist is handling it. It's just that great picture of like,
You don't need to change
here's
it.
this bubble and there's 5, like I think of, when we talked about that the Justice League Fatal 5 movie, and at the very end, and it's still like it's not a rewarding ending, but when all these bubbles start appearing and you have all these costumed heroes, and I'm like, that's just a good visual. Like it just looks good.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my favorite Legion stories involve time bubbles where it's like they're flying in and stuff's happening. But having said that, I do agree. I think the less they time travel, the better, because it causes issues. But it's
the Miracle Machine.
Part of Legion.
Yeah, like the Miracle Machine. I think it's a spice best used sparingly, and because it makes things. I mean, hey, the good writers, they say, well, these things that make it easy, let's get rid of that, right? And so how do we move that out of the equation? So that it's like, this has to be them working hard for this.
So the time bubble is cardamom and the flight ring is salt.
Yes. Yeah, no, that definitely. Yes, because the flight ring is getting used all the time. And I like it.
That's the way we're going to go.
I'm now hungry.
Okay, so is there anything else that we should get into? I mean, there's a lot of the little things that I think are kind of cool. I mean, we could talk about Wildfire's suit and how nobody built it to not get destroyed.
Yeah.
That's an interesting bit of tech.
Oh, yeah, take a drink.
The Bouncing Boy, which I think is a great ship that they invented in Legion Worlds and kind of showed up in the Legion.
Yes.
Although it makes no sense to name it the Bouncing Boy, but it was just a cool way to keep Chuck involved.
It was it was a kind of a great call out. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of little bits. There's everything from like the holographic mission monitor boards where they could keep tabs on what was going on wherever. Again, ahead of their time. Very much now we take for granted that it's like I can go into my text app and where's my youngest? Okay, she's over at so and so's place. Okay, I know where she's at, right? And it feels like that. And that was definitely a look that was like, that was a Giffinism, where he came in and said like, hey, we can make that look a lot cooler. We can make it, we can do kind of a visual presentation with it. And there it was. Yeah, that's a big one for me, is just like the way he, now we were talking to holograms of people. And I mentioned earlier, I've been doing a rewatch of How I Met Your Mother, and there's a one in there where he checks a message in the future in probably 2026, and it's like he confers, he talks to like a hologram version of Jason Segel's character, and it's like, okay, we're not quite there, but all but.
Yeah, I mean, like we have hologram performers.
Yeah,
like we have concerts where dead performers come up in holograms. Yeah, I mean, you said this at the very beginning of the episode, like the tech when the Star Trek tech that becomes real.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing when you go back and you read a lot of this stuff, is how it's kind of become real, or how we've started to see, like people get inspiration from what they've seen in sci-fi. And I mean, as much as I'd like to see like a hypo disc where to put you to sleep, they just slap something on your chest and you fall asleep, like it's that kind of thing. And I think, I mentioned it before, and I think the big wrap on this I mean, the question that we always like to ask is, where do you want to see this going forward? And I think we all kind of are in the same boat of like, just push the tech.
Yeah.
Like, make it
cool.
Make it cool. Like I've said this before, is like, if they've done it in a Marvel movie, then Legion should be 500 steps better.
Yeah.
Right. So like,
Yeah.
if the first Legion comic has like I just think of like that last Iron Man suit where it's all nanites and it's just coming together. I'm like, okay, the Legion should be better than that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like make it so the audience is like, whoa, like that's
Yeah.
that's cool.
How do we, how do you use the technology to make the storytelling better?
Yep.
Because that is the ultimate goal. How do you use it to tell the story better and then be consistent with it, and kind of like show off that stuff. It's like, look what could happen, right? Like, this is the best of speculative fiction, is look what could happen. And, how do we get there? That's the real thing. And that is where, we've had all these technological visionaries say, Star Trek communicators got it. The pad got it. I'm in the grocery store and I tell my headphones to call my wife to let her know I'm on my way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still get that feeling of like, I've been able to do that for years, but I'm still like, man, that is Star Trek stuff right here.
Yeah.
And we should get to where we can be like, that is Legion stuff right here.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, it's 1,000 years ago. If you look at the way the world was 1,000 years ago, could they even imagine?
Oh my God.
Our world today,
guys, when we were growing up, could you imagine?
Right. I mean, I would not have bet that we would have had something even more powerful than the Star Trek communicator,
right?
In our pockets. And here we are. So 1,000 years from now, it's the possibilities are just whatever your limits of your imagination are. So.
You watch a movie like Apollo 13, and they have that scene where they're walking through the NASA HQ, and a guy says, "One day we hope to have a computer that will fit in a single room." And now I've got that on my wrist.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Well, remember, 1,000 years ago, half the population was dead before 30. So they were probably not thinking about having...
They didn't have time to think about
those sort of things. Partly my point, right, is that, we found ways to live better.
Yeah. And according to an early Legion comic, they all live much longer. So that's why they look like adults and they're still considered
right. They still call
teenagers.
themselves boy and girl and...
Right.
And last. They don't even need any special drugs.
Yeah. Well, if you don't think I can't pull like arcane Legion references,
that's a great
we're
one.
Going nuts on
Absolutely.
That. So okay, one last question, and then we're gonna end this. And I just want to start with what is your favorite like dumb Legion tech where you look at it and you go, this is just the silliest thing, but I get a kick out of it.
Interplanetary chance machine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna choose our Legion leader by having this thing spin around, and whichever head flies off at the fastest, that's our leader.
Yeah.
It's even better than having people rock, paper, scissors for it.
All right, Jim, dumbest tech?
Dumbest tech. Oh, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one.
I think I've taken the big one off the floor, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Dumbest tech. You gotta. I wasn't even thinking about anything like this. Wow. Can I pass? I'm going to pass to Jay.
Okay. So I was going to go with the polymer screen, which if you think about
what
it is, it's basically just a plastic wrapper.
Yes.
But my favorite one is the reverse waterfall. When it's
right.
Silver Age and they're flying around and it's like there's somebody shutting everything down and they go it's destroying all the super tech, and one of them is, we made a waterfall go up. And I was like, that's so stupid and I love this.
Bravo.
So I know, so that same era that made me think of something else. It might have been in that same stretch of stories, but wasn't there like a city that could walk around on stilts or something like that? or am I getting that confused with Adam Strange? I might be.
It could be.
It could be either. Yeah, but that polymer shield, oh my God. Right? Like
visually it looked awesome. Yeah, just dumb.
Just like, wow, what could possibly go wrong? And this, of course, wait, did we have that? Was that what the Grimbor's chains were coming up against, or was that done as a response to Grimbor's chains?
It was response to Grimbor's chains.
What a great idea. We don't like shackles around the Earth, so let's build our own.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. So when I was looking at the issue yesterday about when they were talking about the transuits, right?
Yeah,
When they were flying up, and that's when you first see them, is the Grimbor issue. I thought I remembered seeing the polymer, but I guess that must have come a lot later.
Yeah,
then,
the
so.
polymer shield.
Yeah.
The polymer shield, I think, was like in the at the very least in Annual 1, because they talked about like you saw one of the Servants of Darkness had smashed into it, which, okay, I guess pretty cool. But the idea that they were like, wow, these chains, they were like, taking our atmosphere away. We should totally put a shield, like, the chains covered a sort of 0.05% of the Earth's circumference, but this polymer shield covers all of it. And I guess we get to fill what's going in. And if they were smart, they'd use the Tesseract technology to, fly in the oxygen. But I don't know that was the case then.
The other one that I will name, while it's in one sense it's very cool, and the other sense is kind of ridiculous, are the blue probes.
Yeah,
which they're cool in concept, but they only have like 64 megs of memory in them. So it's like, what am I going to do?
They're terrible. They're like the worst kind of thumb drives, right?
But at least the future 64 megs can hold a ton more stuff.
But if you really think about this, again, we go back to the sandwich conundrum. Is a transuit allows you to eat a sandwich. A probe will tell you it's 64 megabytes worth of stuff and bring you a sandwich.
That's useful.
Nobody talks about the cooking skills of a probe.
They have the entire New York Times cooking app in its memory. Right.
Yes.
Those of you out there listening, if you don't have it and you want it to make good meals, it's amazing.
There you go.
I'll just put it at that.
Nice.
All right. I think we're going to wrap this up here. So let's get to what we do at the end of every episode is Paul, tell us where people can find you, what you're working on right now.
Guys, you can always find me at legionofsubstitutepodcasters.com, where we talk about the Legion every week, every Monday. And originally that was set out because, of course, Mon-El. And so every Monday there's a new episode, and has been every week for the last 18 years. And no sense of discontinuing such a thing. So you can check us out there. We have our Facebook group, which is at facebook.legionofsubstitutepodcasters.com. And interact with us there. We are on Blue Sky as LOSP Podcast. So always talking Legion every week.
Nice. All right. Jim, where can everybody find you?
All right. I have my Legion Reviews website at jimboslegion.blogspot.com. You can find me personally on Blue Sky at jimbofett.bsky.social, on Reddit at jimbofett87 if I haven't been banned, and on Discord as Jimbo Fett on the Legion Fan Club Discord, as well as the Certain Point of View Discord. So it's true. I'm on a 7-day ban for saying something that wasn't even controversial.
Edgy.
I know.
Congratulations. I've only been banned by one subreddit, so you've beaten me on that one.
So yeah. So and Jay, where can we find you?
So you can find my weekly column where I'm rereading old Legion issues at jmlonglivethelegion.blogspot.com. You can find me on Discord and on Reddit at Drake Burrows. You can find me on Blue Sky at jmckiernan.bsky.social. And you can find this podcast everywhere. We are on YouTube. We are on Blue Sky, and it's Long Live the Legion at .bsky.social, correct?
Yes, longlivethelegion.bsky.social.
Yes.
You can email us, and please email us, longlivethelegion2025 at gmail.com. We are also on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We are
YouTube.
Linktree. YouTube. We're everywhere. And wherever you find us, leave a 5-star review. Only 5-star, please. It's like those reviews when you go where anything lower than 5 is considered a fail. Think of it the same way. And subscribe as well.
Why waste your time doing less than 5 stars?
Yes, exactly. It's like
exactly.
It just makes us feel bad. It's like when people say don't like on one of our things. And what are you doing? Come on. Aside from that, is there anything I've missed?
No, I think that's it. And we will catch you all next episode. And until then, we're going to shut down the mission monitor board and say, long live the Legion.
Yeah.
Long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories.
immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
Blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun, whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.